Good afternoon to you, snooker fans, and welcome to this Masters review episode of the 15 Red podcast. I'm Scott McCarter here in County Tyrone in Northern Ireland, and I'm joined from London, fresh from a few days at Alexandra Palace, Kellie Barker. Good afternoon to you, Kellie.
Hello, Scott. How are you doing? Yeah, great few days at the Masters. Hope you enjoyed it too. And once again, well done, Kyron Wilson. Finally got a Masters title on his CV, which he was very keen to add. And yeah, better. I think John didn't put up much of a fight in the final, but Kyron was a worthy winner, I think.
Very much so, and given we'll get on to the semi-finals in a moment, but given the semi-finals were such a slog for both of them to some extent, uh, you know, fair play to John for getting there, but fair play to Kyron for battling through. As you say, not the highest standard of match, but a very worthy winner in the end. And we know how we've mentioned on here before how much of a family unit the Wilsons are, and it was lovely to see Sophie and the two young fellas absolutely loving it after the match last night. And it's those moments that make us realise, they are human beings and they're wonderful human beings at that.
Absolutely. I'm pleased for Kyron. Like you say, he's a good family man and it's a great team effort. And the families had their health issues in recent times and recent years. We could see on the pictures that his dad will probably never get much better than what he is now. But it was great to see them all there.
Yeah.
And it was all lovely for them to share that moment. And I was at Kyron's first round match on the Tuesday last week, and 6-2 over CJW, which was the pattern of the first round. But
Yeah.
Kyron played very well in that first round match. I was very impressed with him, and
Yeah.
I did think then, he could go close this week. There were a few players who did very well in the first, played very well and solid in the first round. But yes, being in the audience for Kyron's first game, I do remember thinking, we could go close here this week. He'd sorted the cue problems out that troubled him so much at the UK Championship. And, I'm glad he sorted that out because, when a player loses the cue that he's done so well with and has to change, it's very tough to get used to. And it was sad to see Kyron so down about everything in York. So to come back just 7 weeks later with a new cue when he's fully used to it, he said he'd put a lot of practice in over Christmas. And yeah, it's fun. What a turnaround. And less than 2 months. So well done to him.
Very much so. Well, you're talking there about shoes getting damaged and so on. The classic example of that was Stephen Hendry. You remember that. The QE won all 7 world titles we've got damaged, and he was never the same player since after that.
No, he wasn't. I do think cue making has moved on in the last 20 years or so. I think a lot of players change their cues these days when they wouldn't necessarily have to. We've seen it a lot this season. Even Judd had a great season last time around, but some reason changed his cue. It hasn't quite worked. Gone back to the original now, and I thought he looked good at times in the Masters. But he isn't quite firing this season as Judd. But yeah, going back to the cues, I think there's a lot of very good cue makers out there now who, and I think if a player has to change their cue these days compared to 20 odd years ago, it's not such a frightful thing that it was back then. So, But anyway, well done, Kyron. And let's shall we go through the tournament?
Yes, well, we'll have to start. Well, I wonder scores were in the first round matches. That was extraordinary, wasn't it?
We've never seen the likes before, have we? All these 6-2s, absolutely incredible. Um, on the first day they were both 6-2, and you were thinking, oh well. But then it kept happening and happening day after day. So I'm sure that will never happen again. I just hope there's someone out there who had 50p on every score being 6-2 and picking the winner. Sadly, it wasn't me with that bet. I didn't have a bet at all last week. But hopefully there's someone out there who might have done, because nobody would have chose it, would they? But anyway, moving into the tournament, and the first afternoon really got the tournament rocking. Sean Murphy, the defending champion, came out against Wu Yiza on his Masters debut. Such an exciting talent, and he really took to the Masters well straight away. He made a 137, which ended up being the highest break of the week. And Sean was really off colour. He didn't offer much at all, sadly, as defending champion. And Wu moved into the quarters, and 6-2. That was the first one we got, and Wu played really well. Yeah, I think he started to struggle a little bit later on, just getting over the line. But I think the way Sean played so poorly, he wasn't going to come back in that one. And it was good to see Wu make his Masters debut.
Certainly, yes. I mean, you know how much I rate Wu's abilities. I mean, the International Championship one against John was absolutely superb that week. So, I was expecting him to do pretty well against Sean. I wasn't expecting Sean to play as poorly, because we know Sean's had a pretty good time with him recent times. But, he was very poor. But seems to be the pattern. Sometimes you get 6-2s that don't really reflect play, but it seemed to me that one player was sort of very below par, and the other player was sort of adequate, if you like, for some of them at least.
Yes, I think so. The 137 from Wu was the highlight of the game, and he did start very well. To be fair, he led 3-0, and then just sort of, nursed the lead home really. But I thought that was a great match to start with. But then, as we went through the first round, as we've touched on, all 6-2s. Some standouts. I thought Judd beat Ding 6-2. I thought that was an excellent performance. And we must mention that Ronnie O'Sullivan did withdraw from the tournament just before it started, and Chris Wakeling was the lucky guy to get in as number 17 in the rankings. But he lost to Neil Robertson. He never really got going either, did Chris. But it's a nice £25,000 bonus for getting the call and showing up. That was the first round, really. Mark Allen beat Mark Williams 6-2. Xing Tong beat Gary Wilson 6-2. I thought Xing Tong looked pretty good, actually. And the big shock, really, of the first round was Zhao Gudong, also on his Masters debut, beat Mark Selby 6-2 on the first evening of the tournament. But so that was round one. It was all good stuff, I thought. It didn't have the drama of 4-all, 5-all thrillers, but it did have some quality snooker, so we enjoyed that. But we moved on into the quarterfinals, and first up, John Higgins beat Zhao Xing-Tong 6-5. I know you'll have been pleased with this one, Scott. Higgins rode his luck towards the end, it has to be said. Zhao probably took one shot too many on in the decider. That read up the cushion, if you remember. and that was him done for. Then he never got another proper chance. And I think John admitted he was lucky to get through. I think he had a couple of great flukes at good times.
Yeah,
But it was a good match. I enjoyed that one.
yes, and especially after all the 6-2, you were sort of thinking, surely to heaven we can't have another one-sided one. So like it went 5-3, and you thought, gee, I would probably do it, but fair play to John. You can't count them out. I mean, I know we'll get to the final in a moment, but the achievement of John at 50 years of age, it's just extraordinary. And to beat the world champion was absolutely wonderful for him. Well deserved. Yes, he rode his luck a bit towards the end, but if you can't get lucky when you come back from 5-3 down, when can you get lucky, I suppose? There's no point in being lucky. There's no point in being lucky if you're 5-0 up on a maximum break. So
Absolutely, and I think the crowd and everyone was delighted for John there with that one. I felt they were all on his side really. But yeah, that was a great match to start. So we finally got a 6-5. So a great match to start the quarterfinals after all those 6-2s. But in the evening, it was we were back to the 6-2s as Judd beat Mark Allen. I thought Judd looked solid, particularly after the interval from 2-all. Possibly one that rather got away from Mark Allen. On another day, he might have been 3-1 up at the interval, but he
yes,
was then at 2-all. He didn't really show much, if anything, after the interval, and Judd pulled away.
yes. Well, you can imagine my disappointment that night was acute. As you say, Mark he should have been 3-1 really, but 'cause if you compare Judd's performance in the first round against Sting to the way he played against Mark, it was night and day basically. But so yes, Mark will be disappointed there. Like I thought after the way Mark played against Mark Williams, I texted you and said, could I be uh, hoping for a local victory? But that prediction rather went like our predictions from last week, rather had a lot of egg on our faces.
Yes, I hope you like egg, Scott, because that was all that was served up, really.
Yeah.
But on to Friday's pair of quarterfinals, and in the afternoon we had a tremendous performance, really, from Wu Yiza as he beat Zhao Gudong 6-0. Gudong cooked a meal for his close friend Wu the night before this game, but Wu showed no mercy in this one, running away to win 6-0, sorry, in sparkling form. Started with a century, made two other centuries and an 84 to dazzle us all. It was a 6-0, but it was tremendous snooker from Wu, and Gudong just didn't really have any answers to that power play.
Yes, it's more as you say, a sort of classic 6-0 where the other fella dominated. Like we would have beaten anybody 6-0 in that sort of form. It wouldn't really matter who was in the other chair. But that was a bit curious, cooking a meal for him the night before. I know maybe it's logistics that they both were staying together, but it did strike me as rather odd, I have to say, all of that. But no, it was great from Wu. As I say, he's one of the players I rate very highly, so it was great to see him perform to his potential.
Yes, I did think about the cooking thing. I think it's just something the Chinese, they're very close friends and stick together, maybe because they're so far from home. But, Stephen Hendry never would have cooked for Steve Davis back in the day, would he? Might do
No,
now because he's a pretty handy cook, but he never would have entertained that idea back in the day.
can you imagine Stephen cooking for Jimmy the night before a world final?
I actually can't, only because I think you wouldn't have found Jimmy indoors. He'd have been out out enjoying himself somewhere where Stephen Hendry would have been getting ready for bed. I think that's the big difference.
Yes, how times have changed, eh? How times have changed.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, there are a lot. I think, Jimmy got by on raw talent for most of his career because he admitted that he didn't really put the work in quite as he should. But I mean, he's a lot more dedicated these days, says Jimmy. Apparently, you can't get him off the practice table. So, but hopefully, if Hendry offers to cook for him now, he would take him up on the offer. Anyway, we moved to the final of the last of the quarterfinals, and this was one of the matches of the week. Scott Kyron beating Neil Robertson 6-5. This was, like I say, maybe match of the week. Kyron led 3-0 and 4-1, but back-to-back centuries and a 65 somehow brought Neil from looking down and out to leading 5-4. A 111 brought Kyron back to 5-all. But sheer determination got him over the line to win 6-5. And I think Neil would have felt unlucky in the end. It was a tremendous game from both. And a superb comeback from Neil, but just wasn't quite enough in the end.
Yeah, I suppose you could say the damage was done at the start, but that wouldn't really be true because I mean the first three frames, Neil's highest break I think was 29. It was it was like, has the real Neil Robertson gone missing somewhere? Has he gone to the wrong Alexandra Palace or something?
Yeah, he was very slow out of the blocks, and I thought he wouldn't get out of the blocks in the end, but maybe Joe Perry had some words at the interval because he really did play well afterwards, and I thought he was looking the stronger towards the end actually, but Kyron is such a battler, you couldn't fault him really. That century to make it 5-all. Yeah. And just sheer determination and bloody mindedness gets him, when the chips are down. I think Kyron, along with your Salbys and your Higginses, when the chips are down, Kyron's someone you really want on your side at the moment because he finds a way to get through. But great match.
Oh, yes. A definite candidate for match, not only match of the week, but definitely a master classic, I would put there. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Among the best of 11s that we've probably ever seen, certainly in the Alexandra Palace period.
Absolutely. I tremendously enjoyed this game. And it was a Friday night thriller. But on to Saturday. And overall, as a day, it probably got even better, Scott. The afternoon semi-final, John Higgins beat Judd 6-5, and I'm sure you were cock-a-hoop with this one. Judd led 3-0 to start with, and it looks like it might peter out into an easy win, but Judd had mistakes in him, even when he went 3-0 up, and he allowed Higgins back into it. Judd led 5-3 though, and he was a couple of pots away from winning 6-3. He inexplicably missed a brown, though, allowing John in to make it 5-4. And he looked destined to lose after that, I thought. I thought he might struggle to get over the line. Trump had other chances, but Higgins finished with a 70 and a 57 to claim a 6-5 win and a chance to win his first Masters for 20 years. It was quite an incredible game, Scott.
It was. And like looking at the head-to-head stats beforehand, Trump had won the last 7 and 14 out of the last 15 against John. So, so on the numbers alone, you didn't give John much hope, really. And then Trump gets out of the blocks 3-0. You think, oh dear, this could be an early night. But no, fair play to John. I mean, absolutely wonderful stuff. Stat that they brought up, you know the way the BBC brought up the deciding frame ratios before the decider started or after the break-off shot. Uh, Judd has not actually won a decider this season. He's now lost 7 in a row.
No, I was at Alexandra Palace for that one on Saturday afternoon, so I didn't see the BBC coverage, but I did hear somewhere. I think it was maybe on Dave Hendon's 15 Minutes one morning that Judd has lost 7 deciders this season. So is there something in his mind a bit now that he's struggling to get it done because he never used to struggle? He hasn't been quite himself. He has periods, Judd, of really good snooker, and you're thinking, oh, he's back this week. But and I thought he played well enough against Ding and okay enough against Mark Allen, who didn't really produce. But against John, even at 5-3 up when he missed a chance, I somehow felt that John might just it might be written in the stars for John to win that one because those snooker gods don't forgive easily, do they? And when they turn against you, they hard to get back on side.
Yes, well, I was listening to it was actually Dave Henton commentating on that John Higgins Judd Trump match that I was listening to, although it was over to the BBC picture and graphics and stuff. And he said, like, Trump was lost a final, and and then I was listening to JV last night, and he said the balls don't John Virgo, and he said the balls don't forgive you. It's an extraordinary thing, but the balls don't forgive you. Like the snooker gods say to themselves, right, he's had his chance, let's make him suffer.
Absolutely. And it's so true. I think whether it gets in your head when you've missed a chance, but it's a cliche as old as time. The balls don't forgive, the snooker gods don't forgive. And I did feel that John would win it when Judd missed his chances earlier on to get it over the line. And then in the decider, I always felt John would do it. I mean, everyone knows I'm a Judd fan, and I would have loved to have seen him in the final and maybe lift another trophy. But it wasn't to be. And in the end, I mean, John looked so happy at the end, and it was great to
Oh,
see. The, the,
yeah.
the crowd, maybe it's because he's got older, but the crowd were thoroughly on his side, and it really made for a great atmosphere. And I think they really like his walk-on song, and they really got behind him. And I think people realise the class of '92 really can't go on forever, although it doesn't seem like that.
Yeah.
So whenever these guys do get to these big semi-finals and finals, I think the crowd and just snooker fans in general are just treasuring the moment because how long can they go on? We've already had Mark Williams winning a big title this season. Now John reaching this final. It was a real highlight to just be there Saturday afternoon to hear that roar and enjoy the moment for John, really.
Oh, yes, it was marvelous. I mean, the extraordinary thing is, too, the three of them are just the most extraordinary sportsmen. I know will sound like a broken record extolling the three of them, but there really is no parallel for it in any sport. I know you had Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic, but they haven't been doing it in tennis for 30 years. Dear me, it's extraordinary.
It is, and like I say, I think we just have to treasure them as long as we've got them. And I think it was a shame for the tournament that Ronnie didn't play in the end. But and Mark Williams didn't play well at all in this first round against Mark Allen. I was at that
Yeah,
one as well, and yeah, I'm a great Williams fan, but he didn't really show up either,
not at
which was a
all.
shame.
Not at
But
all.
Yeah, so we had John Higgins into the Masters final 20 years after he last won it. So who would he play? Obviously we know now, but Kyron beat Wu Yi's a 6-5 in the second semi-final. And this ended
Oh,
it up being another thriller, again with the Warrior, with a brilliant 116 century in the decider, but that only told half the story, really. From
oh,
2-all at the interval, Kyron looked to be taking control as breaks of 76 and 74 took him 4-2 up. Wu hit back with his sparkling snooker, though, and three half centuries took him 5-4 up in no time. He looked good to win 6-4, but a missed red when going well in the next was a costly error, and as Kyron stole it for 5-all, then the Warrior booked his place in the final with a century in the decider. This might be a sore one for Wu, but no one could doubt Kyron Wilson's will to win, especially when it matters most. You know, like I say, this will be. I think we won't forget this for a little while. I think he'll need to get it out of his system. But Kyron, when the chips are down again,
oh,
you
that's
know,
right.
back against the wall, the Warrior had the answer.
Oh, goodness me. One of the one of the best centuries under pressure that at 5-all that I've ever seen. And you and I, snooker wise, I know I'm a bit younger than you are. Sorry to make you feel old there, but you and I have been round the block snooker wise a few times. We've seen a few centuries in our time, but dear me, that was superb that century in the decider. But Wu in 3 and 10, that missed red. My goodness me, that'll hurt because I said to you maybe the next morning, I said he would fancy, he would have fancied beating John because he beat him obviously in the International Championship final 10-6, it turns out. And, we would have fancied another crack at John, but again, the snooker gods don't forgive.
No, I think that misread in the 10th, I think it was, or haunt Wu. I felt so bad for him afterwards, but someone like Kyron, he just sensed that that was his moment. He managed to get over the line in that frame eventually. And it seemed to be a thing for Kyron's week, really, when at the big moments, when he had a chance to clear and steal frames, you felt he would do it. It was the same in the final, really. We'll move on to the final against John. It looked like it might be one of those great finals, but standard wise, it didn't turn out that way, unfortunately.
Uh,
But I thought the afternoon was very interesting. It was a bit sort of stodgy, slow going at times with missed chances, but at 3-all, I think the big moment there was Kyron finished with two centuries at the end of the afternoon to go 5-3 up. And I always felt he was in the hot seat then. I didn't ever think he would relinquish that lead going into the rest of the evening. John didn't pick up his form, and I think Kyron just had enough, really. It wasn't, I don't think it'll go down as a memorable final as a fan, but Kyron, he always seemed to have a bit more in the tank when it was needed. And those two centuries at the end of the afternoon, I think they were a bit of a statement, really, to say that that's what I've got when I needed it.
I would agree entirely with that analysis, really. I mean, it must have took something out of John to come back from 5-3 down twice. I mean, he wouldn't be human if it didn't. But yes, Kyron, while not being absolutely spellbinding, uh, just had enough. It was thing of the week, really. One player below par, another maybe not quite as I say spellbinding, but adequate. And obviously, in Kyron's point of view, he's won it. He's got £350,000 in the Paul Hunter Trophy in the boot of his car, so he'll not worry about the standard.
No, he certainly won't. And you can't fault him really. He played very well overall. Not the final necessarily, but in his other three matches, he was always the better player, and I enjoyed watching him. And when he said he's going to give this trophy to his mum to put on the dining table. I know he'd been wanting to do that since he lost his first final, and yeah, what a trophy to take home, eh? It is one of the loveliest looking trophies we've got in snooker.
Yes, and of course, named after a great champion as well. Uh, so overall, uh, it's always a great week at the Masters. I have to say that the Masters memories the BBC did were absolutely superb. You know, I always think I would have loved to have gone to the Wembley Conference Centre. Oh, it was a wonderful old venue, and such a shame it's not there. But Alexandra Palace is probably the natural home for the Masters now. But tremendous week and thoroughly enjoyable.
Yes, I was unfortunately I never quite made it to the conference centre either. Wembley Arena was my first time of going to the Masters, but I think Alexandra Palace nowadays really is a hot ticket. It's a great arena. What they've done with the fan zone, I think we spent as much time whenever there wasn't play going on. We were always out in the fan zone on the little table having a game, and it was just a lovely atmosphere. The player, some of the legends did, photo sessions and meet and greets, so that was all lovely. I had my photo with Wu Yeezer in there one day, so
Yeah.
that was very nice. Um, so yeah, you can't fault the Masters, and I think if you ever get a chance to go, even if it's just for one match, I think everybody should do it. I think it doesn't always get the best sort of reputation, and I think the seats can be a bit cramped at times. But when the snooker is good on the table, you sort of forget that your knees are a bit squashed.
Yes, and obviously, just speaking personally for a minute, I was glad that Ken Doherty mentioned about the disabled access. That was good as well. So, you know,
Yeah,
that's always good.
absolutely. There's ample room for the disabled spectators as well. So it's a good venue, and it's thoroughly the home of the Masters now. So I think it will be for many years to come.
Indeed. Well, just before we go, uh, uh, we'll be back probably after the German, I would think. Uh, but before we go, I'll just give you the answer to the two trivia questions that I had from the quiz book on the last episode. The first one of them, in which year did Steve Davis make his last appearance, I should say, at the Masters in 2008 was the answer to that one. And what was John's winning break? We referenced 20 years ago. What was John's winning break 20 years ago? 64. So that's our trivia questions. My one for the German. Now there's not a German master section in the book, but I've got one for you. And my question is, who was Ronnie O'Sullivan's opponent in the 2012 German Masters final? Who was Ronnie's opponent in the German Masters final in 2012? So that'll that'll be your question to chew over on the during the German. We'll be back to review it. Do you want to just briefly give us a rundown of today's Championship League group or what you've seen of it, Kelly?
I haven't seen all of it, unfortunately, but I did watch the first couple of matches on Table One this morning, and Zhao Tong started very well. He beat Wu Yize 3-2 to start with. So that was a good game actually. I think they had 5 frames in about an hour. And then Xing Tong was straight back on and he beat Neil Robertson 3-0. So he was playing very well. And I've just got it on in front of me now, and it's Zhao Xing Tong against Zhao Gudong, and they are currently 1-1. So that's live over on YouTube if you need some more snooker in your life after a week at the Masters. It's a bit lower key, but we'll enjoy it anyway.
Very much so. And then the German Masters begins at another great venue, the Templedrum in Berlin on the 26th. And we'll be back probably sometime after that to review the proceedings from Berlin. So with that, I'll say good evening to Kellie Barker and good evening to everyone who has watched us, and thank you very much for tuning in.
See you soon, guys. Bye.
Hi.